Some weeks ago I played some games categorized as detective games, and I came to a logical conclusion. The category detective on Steam is bad. Or should I say I want to see a new tag on Steam? Let me explain. I really have difficulties searching for games where you really have to think hard, use all your brain cells and come to a final conclusion. It gives a nice feeling when you can deduce everything that happened in a scenario. And I'm not talking about puzzles, I'm talking about murders, theft, weird scenes that played out. Solving logic puzzles doesn't give me the same satisfaction. To better state my point, I want to go over some tags used together with the detective tag. Case 1. Follow the story. To start off, let's take a look at The Wolf Among Us, a great game with a good story and nice art style. But the only real detective thing about it is its protagonist you play, Bigby Wolf, who is in fact a detective. But how you play the game is very linear. You go to a place, look around and click on some things, deduce some minor elements, and at the end you make a few choices that actually don't matter that much. This makes it perfectly clear why they put the tags story rich and choices matter on the game. But a big thing missing here is real deduction. In conversations you can get some pre-made sentences you can choose from. And if you're like me, you just click on all of them and get as much information as possible. You don't really get punished for choosing the wrong answers. This is true for most games that focus more on the story rather than the gameplay, like a lot of the Telltale games. Case 2. Click and find. I see a kind of trend here. If the main character is a detective, they slap the detective tag on the game. I mean, I can sympathize with that, but it doesn't solve my problem. Let's take Darkside Detective. In Darkside Detective, you play as a sort of spiritual detective who's cracking different smaller supernatural cases. But the way you play is just clicking and collecting different items that are used to get to the next level, so to speak. These games are categorized as point and click games. You can't access the room because it's too dark. Let's use something that lights up the room, for example. Matches and a lantern. Or you want to lend a book from the library, so you search for a library card to give to the receptionist. This feels more like common sense than deduction. If the room is too dark, I'll search for a flashlight, obviously. If it's raining outside, I search for an umbrella. Sometimes the developers of the game want to be too clever and creative with this. They would let you start a forest fire to see what's on the other side of a river or something like that. In Darkside Detective, I had to find a button, tin foil and a ghost mechanic to repair the elevator to go to the upper floor. And this way the game is too unbearable to play. You lose that aha moment and just brute force your way to the next section. You can't really think about what you missed because it felt like you had to do something completely random. The problem is that this mechanic hits a wall fast because you can't do more if it's just clicking and combining things on a low scale, like in many point and click games. Return of the Obra Dinn and the Case of the Golden Idol solve this problem by not giving you an easy way out. You have to combine multiple words to complete a section, and because you complete a small story, everything makes more sense. If a deduction is too hard, you can say that it was above your level, you didn't see the solution, or you didn't find the clues. But with combinations like these in point and click games, it's just plain trial and error. But it's not that this genre is bad. Next to using the mechanics for storytelling or reaction games, we can still use the deduction part for children's games.
Everything is going just as I planned.
Let's take a look at Spy Fox or Freddy Fish. I would still play those old humongous entertainment games. These games are aimed at a younger audience. Next to playing the game, they will learn to use common sense, well, most of the time. It's not always hard detective skills you use in these games, it's just more difficult to aim at an older audience. Case 3. Be logical. Let's talk about another Steam tag clinging to the detective tag, which is puzzle. The puzzle tag is very broad, so you can't always see the detective tag added to the puzzle games. In puzzle solving, you are solving something. For example, in a little to the left, you solve small puzzles that are most of the time very obvious. The puzzle solving here is very logical. Sort these books from small to large, place the silverware in a logical way. In fact, in this game there are multiple ways to solve the puzzles. You can use all sorts of logical solutions. Puzzle Agent, another but older Telltale game, is just a story where in between you solve puzzles to proceed to the next level. The puzzles are sometimes even a bit too far-fetched for the story, so they feel a bit out of place. The main game is still the story here. I would also consider this a children's game. A last game I'm going to mention is Down in Bermuda, a simple point-and-click exploration game where you search an area for points that lead you to the next level. It's a beautiful game to look at. The puzzles, on the other hand, are quite simple and also more aesthetically pleasing than a brain teaser. Let me clearly state that the games that I mentioned here are not at fault. They don't have the detective tag attached to them. It's normal you don't use the detective tag on puzzle games, but this also means that this is not the tag I'm looking for. Case 4. At the crime scene. A last tag that really comes close is investigation. And yeah, that makes sense. You investigate the case. A crime scene. You collect some clues, link them together with your awesome deduction skills and boom, you come to the final conclusion. And I came across a game called Scene Investigations that really captures this essence. You come across a murder scene and you can still see the white tape on the ground where the victim died. Looking at the table, the victim probably died of poisoning. There are no signs of blood spatters anywhere. And you can clearly see a wine glass that has fallen over. Searching a bit more, you can link different kinds of information together. Here's a small example. In the game you can find out where some of the people at the table were sitting. All the people at the table were drinking wine except for one. Searching a bit further, we can find out that one of the guests was in rehab. Another clue we can find lying around is the fact that one of the hosts clearly states that his or her cousin doesn't drink alcohol. Linking these two clues together, we can find the name of the guest. Now, games that I'm not looking for in the investigation team are escape room games. Most of the time, escape room games are just point-and-click games that include grueling puzzles to complete. You're looking around the room and suddenly you find a panel that requires 4 metal rings. So the task begins, finding all 4 of them. Hopefully they are not locked away behind a second locked puzzle box. Never mind, here it is. Other games use the investigation parts for storytelling purposes. You look around, find clues in plain sight, often indicated with circles or something else, and you advance the story. So nothing special for the detective side of things. Now let's talk about the real stuff. Case 5. PvP gets it. If we search for deduction on Steam, we get the category social deduction, which became very popular with the game Among Us. Let me give you a quick example. You watch the cams in security. You see someone entering admin and a few seconds later, the same crewmate walks back out. You go to admin to check and you find a dead body on the ground. Putting 2 and 2 together, you deduce that the crewmate leaving admin is the imposter, so you vote that person out. The consequences for selecting a crewmate rather than the imposter are huge in Among Us. One less member on your side. So for player versus player, they got this tag and it's perfect. Why not for PvE games like the case of the Golden Idol? So that's actually the solution I need. I want a tag named deduction that I can use to identify difficult detective games with puzzles, a big mystery and maybe some extra tags. But don't get me wrong, the games under these tags would still be very diverse. I mean, let's look at a game named Unheard. It's a beautiful creative game. You play a scenario that happened and you can rewind that scenario as much as you like. You have limitations though. You can only hear what the people around you are saying in each room, which means you have to rewind a couple of times to come to the correct conclusion. And this makes this game really good. Or Return of the Obra Dinn, also one of a kind game where you solve murders and deaths by looking at the final moments of the deceased person. You can deduce all kinds of information, the accents of crewmates, their outfits, the places they use on the ship, and so on. You can't solve the mystery by looking at one death. The creator made it even harder by only confirming your input if you solve 3 correct deaths. So the game is no walk in the park. You don't drag items together to see if something happens, like in the standard point-and-click games. So I hope they add this one tag, so gamers who like the real detective stuff can enjoy these types of games and don't have to look too hard. If you liked the video, give it a like and subscribe for more. Keep playing cool games and stay awesome.